Hello, everybody. Welcome to a new episode of Something Epic. I'm super excited for our conversation this month because we are bringing on the folks from A Musical Story, Glee Cheese, and I'm so excited to talk to both of you about this game that I've fallen in love with. It is such a wonderful experience. It has been so cool to go through it and to run through the process of, following this band on their journey. Thank you so much for being here today. Appreciate the time.
Thank you very much. We're very happy to be here with you today. And we just want to warn your auditors that we are both French, Alexandre and I, and we'll do our best to speak a correct English, but sometimes it's going to be Franglish.
I love that. And to be fair, I have been an English speaker for all of my life, and I still get it wrong all of the time. So you're absolutely fine in that respect. So thank you, Charles and Alex, for joining me today. So I want to dig into, one of the things about our shows and these episodes is that we're digging into very kind of specific layers of certain games that I really found really interesting and awesome. And your game has multiple layers of that I want to talk about today. But first, before we dig into all of that, I want to talk to all of you about how did Glee Cheese become a studio? It is a thing where folks are, building studios and becoming developers in the gaming space all the time. But a lot of folks don't know how that origin story came to be. So I'd love to hear your thoughts about like how you two met, how did Glee Cheese become a studio, and share some thoughts with our audience.
Of course. Awesome. Wow. Can I start, Alexandre?
Yeah.
So Alexandre and I met in Cannes, in France, where there's the Festival de Cannes. We worked there in a studio. We were hired there, and Alexandre was the art director of the studio, and I was the audio director. And then the studio closed. The game we were working on was called Stellar Overload, and the studio closed. The game was unfinished, and we said, okay, we want to continue working together because, we became friends and we wanted to keep making games together and to create our own games. Sorry?
It was love at first sight.
Yeah, love at first sight, exactly. And we... That's when we decided that, okay, we're going to make a game together. We pretty quickly thought it would be a musical game because I was a musician. Then Valentin, the other composer, came and said, okay, I want to be part of this. And then we had the first developer, Sylvain, which was which we met him in the studio. We worked with Alexandre. And then there's been a second developer, which is Maxime, who finished the game with us. But I think it all started with Alexandre and I having just a glimpse of ID, and then everyone came and it took us so long. I mean, we started working on this game in 2017, September 2017,
oh, wow.
If I'm right. So it's been quite a trip for us to like the band in the game, It's been quite a trip.
I love that, knowing that, again, that camaraderie that came from working together previously and then translated into you two becoming a part of the studio and building the studio out. I love also you talking about you being a musician in that conversation too. Alex, are you also a musician as well? Do you play instruments too?
Yes, but not the same as Charles does, because I'm just I'm very very bad, but I try sometimes, and I love to sing, but it's not I'm not a professional.
Okay. I mean, look, I the one thing I want to do in this life before I go off into the sunset is learn how to play an instrument. So I appreciate anyone who can do any of it badly or not. I appreciate that either way. So I want to talk about, moving into A Musical Story. when you thought about the concept for this, what was the impetus for, or what was the kind of start of, where you wanted this game to kind of live, and how you came up with this, not only the kind of background story, but when you decided to kind of use this, genre to kind of dig into?
Well, I think it all started by us talking and thinking, okay, we're musicians, we want to make a musical game. We have two musicians in the studio, we want to make a musical game. And if we make a musical game, it's going to be different because we don't want something that relies on, just a playhead and you follow everything just by watching the screen. We wanted to have a deep connection with the music. That's what that was here from the very beginning, to have something different based on listening and understanding the music. So even if we tried a huge amount of formulas, this was here at the very beginning. And we also, and the other thing that was here at the very beginning, if I'm right, Alexandre, is that we wanted to make a narrative musical game. Because we knew this would be something different, something in which the music would help you uncover the story. I'll let you complete.
Yes, because if it were not a narrative game, it would have been something like just maybe a classical musical game with, I don't know, classical artistic direction, something very, very flashy, very colorful, but not very something I will be interested in. I wanted a story to draw something special. So yes, obviously it was the narrative way of our game was here from the beginning. Yes.
Yeah, and I mean it's as simple.
He loved making stories, and I also loved it, so it was like an evidence.
Yeah, it's as simple as that. I remember it was like, okay, we love making music, we love writing stories. Let's do both.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and it comes through. The thing that I really love about the game is that it does tell a story in a way that isn't traditional, in the ways that a lot of other games would go about telling this kind of story. The reveal of these story beats and memories after you've completed a puzzle. Would you call it a puzzle? Would you call it, because it's interesting to kind of think of like how you would kind of determine what you would call that, because it is a rhythm-based game, but would you consider the gameplay puzzle-like, or how would you actually
That's interesting.
describe it?
Yeah. But because we are talking about the memory,
Yeah.
so we could say that like when we have a lack of memory,
Yeah.
you say it? Yeah, lack of
Yeah.
memory. It's like a puzzle we try to do. So we could say that.
Yeah, you try to recompose things.
Yeah.
I mean, everything is connected. That's what we try to do, is that everything has a sense, we first thought about this gameplay where you have to learn and remember the music and be able to reproduce it. Then the story came. If we do that with the gameplay, we should do this with the story. We should make a story about someone who remembers events, and we help him remember by remembering the music by ourselves, and everything revolves around this.
Yeah. Yeah, I love the way that the story unfolds, and I love the way that you've captured not only the uh, this visual style that connects really deeply to the story, but I love the aesthetic of the game. Like, I love that you talked about it as this kind of, this game that's built around the 70s backdrop, right? And that comes through a lot, like I'm not that old, but I remember some of the layers of the 70s in that way where you got a chance to see, that psychedelic style that comes through really, really well. What was the thing behind that? When did you decide that we were going to set this in this time period? And as folks who are from France, how did you come to that realization around this kind of, I'm not going to say wholly American styling, but it's very connected to that time frame here in the US with Woodstock and, well, Woodstock in the 60s, but like that time there. How did you all come across with that?
I mean, what I always think is, how did it take us so long to have this idea? Because we wrote a huge amount of stories, to be very honest, and we tried a lot of formulas visually, etc. And at a moment we were a bit stuck, and like I remember Alexandre telling me, would be good to have something like a road trip. I'd love to have a road trip because I love to show different settings,
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. And road trip, immediately I thought about the 70s. And when we had this idea, we immediately knew that it was the good one. I mean, at least musically, because with Valentin, the other composer, we were like, why didn't we think about it earlier? We've loved 70s music since our childhood. We are making music together since 20 years, and Pink Floyd is probably one of our greatest inspirations, and all the 70s period is one of our greatest inspiration. Why didn't we think about it earlier? And it became an evidence at this moment. Yeah.
We could even say that it's funny because we didn't decided to make a game about the 70s. It's like if the 70s came to us, because we decided to speak about the drugs, the road trip, a lot of things. And after we wanted to speak about this, it was like, okay, but it's all about the 70s, no? It was something like this.
I love.
And I mean,
Get Charles. I'm
it's pretty
sorry.
exciting. Sorry, yeah, it's pretty exciting visually too, and for the music too. I mean, it's an exciting period. Alexandre, for Alexandre, it was very interesting, to create characters and costumes and things like that related to the 70s. We all see the colors, we all see the images, the typos of the 70s, and it's the same for music and sounds. So yeah, that was amazing working on such a period. Yeah.
Actually, when I first drew the characters,
Yeah.
it was really fast, really quick. And because we were talking about a road trip, a music band, I always loved Jimi Hendrix, and it was very quick to draw a character like this. I wanted something like this, but we never said before, okay, this had to be the 70s, this had to be this kind of group. It never happened, actually.
That's so interesting because like they feel so cohesive, which I love. They feel like they fit so well. Like I remember seeing the initial trailer and seeing the character, the black character with the afro and the headband, and automatically tying that to Jimi Hendrix and that timing and that stuff, and being like, what is this going to be? This is going to be awesome to be able to check this out whenever this comes out, and then getting a chance to see it and seeing all those elements kind of play not only in the story, but the way that not only you get a chance to see each of these characters kind of living their individual lives and coming together as a band, but then you get to see them, have their moment when they get on stage and be their kind of full of selves. I also just love the bird. The bird just cracks me up because I was looking, I was like, that bird is so high. It is so great to see the way you kind of I love the symbolism of the way you kind of even showed, that transition for them as a team and as a crew of, experiencing those layers of the music generating experience too. So that was super, super cool to see that, you weren't thinking about them in that way, but it kind of came together really, really well. So that's awesome.
Yeah, and I mean for the bird, the crow, we wanted to have a story about addiction, but also love, etc. But we immediately, well, no, it took us a bit of time, but we understood that we didn't want to really show drugs and to be, so we had to have a more symbolism, and the crow in the game immediately is a big symbol because it's very different visually, and so yeah, it symbolizes all these problems, all these dependencies problems, etc. And that we had to go over this route because it would have been complicated to just show horrible scenes, wouldn't have make really good sense,
And that would have been terrible for your ratings as a game. It would have messed up so many of those things too.
Well, we already have pretty high ratings.
No, I mean ratings in terms of like the is it for children? Is it for adults? Any of those things?
Yeah,
like those things.
That's what I said, and we already have something. It's, I don't know if it's M for mature. I don't remember, but it's pretty high because we have one scene in the game where we see two naked people.
All right,
let's say making love, and just that made us 17 plus or M for mature, etc.
Oh wow!
It's all about the nipples. The nipples.
Always that. It's always that.
You can kill people, but the nipples, no, it's not. It's too much.
Music industry is anti-nipple.
We could kill people without any problems, but showing nipples is very complicated.
Oh, society not getting it right again.
Crazy, yeah.
So we're almost out of time. So I definitely want to talk about the musical inspirations, how the music came to be and was composed. Because one of the things I absolutely adored about the game was not only is there a transition and kind of this pulling through the story of the character arc, but even the way that the music has changed throughout from the beginning stages to the end of the game, from a complexity standpoint and from a musicality standpoint. Like the guitars get grittier and crunchier towards the middle and end of the game, and you start to get all this new instrumentation in there. How did the music come apart? Were you both? Were you composing music for the game and decided that so we need this and we need this? So how did that come together?
Yeah, the process was pretty special because the music has to tell the gameplay, and the story in a certain way. So it was kind of complicated, but so satisfying because we first started creating the gameplay, and it was horrible musically. It was just rhythm. We thought of it as like if we were just music teachers, and okay, how are we gonna learn things to people step by step? So that's what we tried first, not even thinking about the story, etc. And then we created a storyboard for each level. And then we decided which will be the instruments for each sequence of each level. and all those instruments evolve and make musical themes in a precise way that always tries to mean something with the story. The way it's like you heard that the way the guitar is played or the sound of this particular instrument at this moment always has a meaning. So that's something we wanted to keep all the time. So yeah, it took us a big amount of time only to make these 26 music, because it's a special way to create them, but it was very satisfying to have something that that's both the gameplay and the story, because we wanted the music. I think that if you listen to the soundtrack,
Yeah.
only seeing the titles of the music and listening to it, I think you can probably understand a lot of the story, of what the story is.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's what
Yeah.
we wanted.
Do you mean all the visuals are not necessary?
Yeah, that's exactly what I mean, Alexandre. No, of course not. But because we decided that the game wouldn't have any word and any text, we had to the visuals and the music had to be super strong to tell everything.
I mean,
Of course, the visuals make everything.
I love the fact that Alex gave you a little bit of shit. That's amazing. But the thing I love about the art style, especially, is it also feels not only not connected directly to the music in the ways that you kind of feel from the rhythm layers of it, but the kind of, it has a staccato to it as well, in the way that it kind of animates too, right? It feels like a mashup of flip pages a little bit too, that come across in this really nice way. How is it kind of, bringing that to life as well?
My way to create this is like, if you were, it's like a cooking recipe.
Yeah.
I have a lot of vocabulary, a lot of tools I can use, and I try a lot of things, and I decide, okay, it's better if it's 6 frames per second than 12. Okay, it's better if the colors are like this. Okay, it's better. And I try a lot of things, and I find the perfect match to make it perfectly stick to the music and to the story and to the mood, the global mood we wanted to put in our projects. So this is the way I work, and it took a very long time to find everything. I didn't remember. I don't remember what was the step, but we had a lot of steps, and maybe the first thing I wanted to work on was the colors, because the colors are very representative of the 70s and this mood, and we wanted to speak about psychedelic, about drugs, and about the inner demons of the character, and I wanted these colors. But after, because we were talking about the memory and the lack of memory, I wanted an image that was vibrating a little bit. And because I used the 6 frames per second technique, I had a result that was satisfying from this point of view. And visually, it was also satisfying. So we decided to keep this technique because of this, and also because it was easier to do, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we're a small team, and those choices have to be made. You know, you don't have an infinite amount of money and time, so you have to make choice that you can assume. So we have, for everything, I mean, for music, for visuals, etc., we always had to find ways to make it look and sound cool, but keep it in a way we could do it by ourselves. Because if the game had costed the double or the triple, we wouldn't have signed it anywhere with any publisher, you know. So
yeah, it's a part of the interesting conversation about the trade-offs that you need to make to be able to get the game out that you want under the circumstances and under those constraints, right? It's always a balance there in that way. And I would say,
but
go ahead, I'm sorry.
Honestly, there is always a way to transform the constraints into something interesting. Always. This is, from my experience, this is something I saw. Always. You can always have the perfect idea to transform this. It's really reassuring.
I can't agree more. I mean, as artists, being totally free can be a real nightmare. Having constraints helps you get more and more ideas, because you have to fight against these constraints to make it something very cool. So the challenge here helps you really have good ideas.
Well, I will say that you have met that challenge in every possible way with this game. It is one of my favorite experiences of this year. It has been something that I've really, really had a blast playing, and you have done a wonderful job. And I'm happy to see all these other folks within the industry giving you all love for the work that you've done on this game. It is a really, really fun and amazing experience. So thank you both for being here on Something Epic. It has been so cool to be able to get a chance to meet you both. And, you know, hopefully we'll have more conversations in the future about all the other games you're going to be making down the line. I would love to be able to do that. So everybody at home, thank you so much for checking out this episode of Something Epic. We'll see you all next month for our next episode. Please make sure you're subscribing. Please make sure you're giving love to our friends from Epic Games for sponsoring this kind of content. And we'll see you all very soon.